Welcome to another edition of the FarmCast presented by 21st Century Equipment. I got Casey Andrews, a Precision Ag Manager, and Hayden Fox, one of our product specialists, with us here today, mainly to talk about See and Spray. And we're back out here at our test farm in Severance, Colorado. Wheat's turning and the corn is growing, so must be some things going right, at least. Yeah. So that's good. Hayden, you're new to the FarmCast. Introduce yourself.
Yeah. My name's Hayden Fox. I'm a product specialist for 21st Century Equipment. I work out of our Burlington location and cover a pretty good chunk of our AOR. I focus on sprayers and application equipment, so I've had quite a bit of time, hands-on experience here lately with both See and Spray Premium and See and Spray Ultimate. So it's been exciting to see some of the data we're getting off that technology.
Good. Cool. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you back, Casey.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for changing the weather on.
Yeah, it's
for me a little bit.
A little warmer this time. Yeah, we do what we can just for you.
Oh, perfect.
No, you said you're kind of busy with some See and Spray demos and things. Kind of, I guess, what's going on?
Yeah, so my counterpart, Zach Hansberger, he's been out in the field with our See and Spray machines. We've got a lot of demos done this spring and a few more to go yet. We've ran both See and Spray machines in fallow, and we've also ran them in standing corn as well. Everything that we've heard so far has been positive feedback. Even the guys that were naysayers or didn't believe in the technology early on when it was first released, now that we're seeing some savings and seeing some numbers, are actually starting to believe in it a little bit more. We've got a handful of customers out that are running machines, See and Spray machines.
We have 10 out there, right?
Yeah, right around 10. We've got 3 See and Spray Selects, 4 See and Spray Premiums, and then 3 See and Spray Ultimates. So quite a few machines out running, working on getting those all fired up and running so far this spring. It's been a pretty smooth startup actually this spring. Those premium kits, one of our questions was, is that an add-on to ExactApply? So we can touch on that for just a minute, I guess.
Well, and I think just kind of, you talked about premium, select, and ultimate. Yeah. What's the difference?
Yeah, so more of Deere's confusing terminology, but basically the See and Spray Premium is an aftermarket add-on kit that we can add to ExactApply sprayers all the way back to model year 2018. And so all the kits that we've got out there, we've retrofitted 2 machines that customers already owned over the summer. The nice thing that Deere's provided with the premium kits is they allow really about anybody to install those. So if the customer wants to install that kit himself, he can. If he wants us as a dealership to install it, we can. Or Deere has dedicated support and install teams that travel around to different dealerships and install this technology. So, but like I said, we've got 4 of those out this spring, and it's a pretty cost-effective way to get into See and Spray technology. Had some awesome feedback and seen some pretty amazing performance out of those pieces of technology.
$25,000 installed, by the way.
Yeah, $25,000 installed. So that's when you start talking about the price of chemical and the price inputs these days, a lot of these guys, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I'll dive into some prices later so we can keep that number in mind as we get into that. But carry on.
So then the other third of the machines we have out is the See and Spray Ultimate. So those are the fancy dual product carbon fiber boom machines that we had at our expo. We actually sprayed our field across the road here with our See and Spray Ultimate machine. Been seeing a lot of encouraging things out of those machines as well. There's still quite a few question marks that we're working on getting answered surrounding See and Spray technology, whether it be how much you load or a few different variables that are going to come with time as we get more acres under these machines. And then I'd mentioned briefly the See and Spray Select machines. Those have been out on the market for quite a few years now. That's just simply a green on brown solution for See and Spray. So that's a fallow application only. So we've got a few guys running them. And I've had good luck, but not quite as many features as the Premium and Ultimate. So.
The best savings, though, out of the fallow machine, or running in fallow over crops and things, right?
Yep. Kind of exciting coming up this year for model year 25. We can actually order See and Spray Premium from the factory. We get asked a lot, what platform would best fit my farm? And that really depends on what crops you're growing, what kind of chemistry you're running, and what you want to do with the machine. We've found that a lot of our guys in our southern half of our AOR are looking a little harder at the premium just because it does take just a little bit longer to load those machines, or a little bit longer to load the ultimates with that dual product system than it does the premiums. And with so many acres to cover, they can move a little bit faster with the premiums. So not a one-size-fits-all solution, though, by any means.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned we did this field across the road from us here, a cornfield. I guess, Casey, you're probably very involved in the planning part of that, and Hayden, you on the execution side. So how did it go? What happened?
It looks pretty dang good out there right now.
Good.
I went out and scouted a little bit before we did this podcast, and you can't really see a visual difference between the two treatments. So we kind of talked about before on a previous podcast kind of what we're doing on this field. So we were looking at the exact shot. We were looking at some biological treatments and some of that technology, but then we tried to spread this See & Spray Ultimate model across those two, cover those treatments, and just see what we get from it. I mean, we'll see what happens when we pull the combine in, what type of results we get, but we wanted to spread across all those treatments. I mean, my advisor in my master's program always preached that, like, replications and making sure you get a good, solid representation, there it is, of the field, sorry. So, like, I think we got it pretty well set up. The planning process took quite a bit of work, but, I mean, that's also the nice part is we worked with an agronomist, like trying to dial that in, trying to figure out what chemistries we should use. That way we have a good representation of what our customers are doing. And that way we can dial that in. Plus, it's always good just to have another set of eyes out there watching things, seeing what we need to be doing. Yeah. So just helps the process a lot better.
Also ahead of time with our strip trials that we're doing over there, about half the field was See & Spray, half broadcast. Talk about the work plan and setting that up, and was it kind of plug and play once we got out here in the field?
Yeah, I think it went really easy. I mean, we get our recs from the agronomists that we have scouting our field, so I was able to build all those tank mixes ahead of time, send that over to the sprayer, and heck, I think it just took a few minutes to get everything plugged into the sprayer once that was sent over. I mean, that was auto path lines, products, rates, all that stuff. Also background layer, that way you knew where to line up the sprayer, where the actual plots were, that way we didn't have any screw ups while we're applying out there. So no, work plan went really well.
Good.
Yep. Yeah, it was super seamless once it was loaded in the machine, took all the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
Just kind of coasted through the field and took a nap, or
especially with trials, I touch on AutoPath a ton. I mean, you start looking at doing different trials, and if you get off a row or get off two rows going through the field, especially as we're doing these trainings and we get our sales team coming through and different individuals riding with us, it's hard to always line up where you need to be in AutoPath. I mean, it just takes all the guesswork out of it, especially for these trials. It's super nice.
Yeah, I've been involved in several trials in the past where they got off maybe two rows, and I mean, then the data is not nearly what we need it to be, and we can't really make those decisions that we need it to because it's not in the right spot. So
one other question: what happens when the cameras get dusty? What have we seen there? I know we've gotten that question quite a bit. Yeah,
so that's what everybody asks with these speed limitations and different things when we talk about the machine going into fallback. So it's fairly impressive. We've ran down south. It's hot, it's dry. We're running them in fallow where it's dusty and dirty, and haven't had any issues yet. If you got a camera, say it got so covered in dust that it couldn't see anything, that camera would go into fallback mode. So if you think about it, one camera with this technology controls 3 nozzles. So worst case scenario, if you had one camera get dusty, 3 nozzles would broadcast spray until you went out and wiped it off. When you go to clean them, it's nothing fancy. It's just a terry cloth and some water is all it takes to wipe them down. But we really haven't seen many issues with with dust or anything like that compared to what we thought we would.
They get notified on the display then too, right? So pretty immediate feedback.
Exactly. It'll tell you right on the display what nozzles or what cameras are in fallback in our broadcasting. And it, for example, we've had some misconceptions out there. If, say my left boom is traveling too fast as I'm going around a turn, will my whole sprayer go into fallback mode? Will the whole system go into fallback? And the answer is no. So if you've got a small portion of that system where the conditions are not met, it's just that portion of the system that's going into fallback mode. So you're very rarely, the biggest thing that we've seen with fallback is on operations center as you're going through the field. If it's a super hot, dry, dusty day, the nozzles right behind your tires are going to be kicking up dust, and it's hard to see weeds there too. But that's been the biggest thing we've seen with that.
So another question on See & Spray Premium. What are the requirements if I want to upgrade my existing sprayer? What do I need?
Yeah.
What are those requirements?
The very few requirements. So basically, if you want to add See & Spray Premium to a sprayer you've already got, like I said, it's compatible back to model year 2018 machines and newer. And it's got to have ExactApply on it already, which if your machine doesn't already have ExactApply, that's another option that we could add on in addition as well. For 2025 and beyond, for See & Spray Premium, we will have to run a G5 display for See & Spray Premium, which that's no big deal. You just include that in and build that into the Premium as you're speccing that kit out. But like I said, as I had mentioned, it has been nice. As this technology evolves, as Deere continues to develop the sprayers, the install time to install Premium just continues to go down. When we did some of the first kits, installed some of the first Premium kits, there's a lot of hole drilling for brackets, and there's a lot of little things that could have been done from the factory to save time. Deere's realizing that, and they're starting to do that from the factory now. So it's they're streamlining the whole install process quite a bit.
And have to be on a 120-foot boom, right?
As of right now, 120-foot boom's our only option.
I think that's the only requirement that I knew of that you didn't mention. So
exactly, that's about our only requirement. Other than that, so
good.
What about like product reclaim and some of those?
Yeah. If we're on the topic of sprayer upgrades, if you look at a new sprayer, some of the nice features we've got, the pressure recirculation, the product reclaim, things like that, we can also retrofit those back to sprayers. You still can use all of those features with See & Spray Premium too, so you've still got all that availability as well. And I think one thing, another misnomer that we've heard quite a bit is that it's a chore or it's a task to switch over from See & Spraying to broadcast spraying with Premium. I'm not kidding. In 30 seconds with 2 button pushes in the cab, you're gone from See & Spray to broadcast. So it's really streamlined and seamless. So,
cool.
Part of the Premium kit, when we install that, is we also upgrade boom tracks. We go to what they're calling Boom Track Pro 2. So you're getting a higher level of accuracy out of that boom track. We have to do that so that those cameras stay within their designated range, so that they can stay at a fairly level height and continue to see those weeds like they should. But another nice feature of adding Premium. So
in your intro, Hayden, you talked about demoing the See & Spray machine to customers that maybe even had some doubts. I guess what was that sentiment afterwards of, hey, maybe this actually works, and how did we get there with them?
The neatest thing I think I've seen over the whole course of doing these demos and then field startups and running our own trials here at the farm, no two use case is the same. One grower has one idea of what he wants it to do on his farm. The next grower you talk to has a completely different idea of how he wants it to work. And the more we run it, the more flexible we find that it is. There's not that many restrictions to it. You can get super creative with it and really make it work for you, work for your operation. And so, like I said, it's just really been neat to see after we do the demos and we see that we're getting the same hit rate, on the weeds, getting the same kill rate as a broadcast application. It's interesting to see the light bulbs start popping on in some of these growers' heads. It's been encouraging for sure. So.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like it's cool to hear all the different opportunities or just different ideas on use cases. I mean, if it's looking at ways to, obviously savings. I mean, we've heard savings a lot being talked about with this, but maybe it's just overall control. Maybe just trying to do a better job. Maybe adjusting our chemistries, our modes of action. That way, if it's a hard to control weed like kochia that a lot of guys have fought in the past, or palmer and some of those, maybe we adjust some of those chemistries. Maybe we look at different residual herbicides to get a little better control up front, and then we can utilize the savings after the fact. So it's really just a chain reaction. We start having a conversation, and then the next thing's like, well, what if I do this? What would happen? And then it just continues to snowball, and we get into some pretty neat conversations with growers about things that we want to try, and it helps us learn as well. I think that part of it, especially with this advanced technology, is probably the most important thing. I mean,
have our own ideas of what we want to do at our farm, but having these conversations with growers allows us to replicate things as close to a real world scenario on our farm as possible. That way we're getting data that they can relate to and that's beneficial, not something that came from some university back east. And I think the neat thing with it is too, we get asked all the time, and we hear comments all the time, this isn't going to work on my farm, or this isn't going to work in my area. And some of the growers we've demoed to are guys that have said those comments, and for the most part, a lot of people are right. I mean, it's not going to work on every single operation, and what we have found is it's not even going to work on every single acre on a particular operation. It's very much a case-by-case scenario, but the guys that have demoed it and that have bought it have found, the sky's the limit with it. So that's been the encouraging part of it too.
Yeah, it sounds like they've been able to at least find that one spot on their farm that it works, and maybe do, utilize the technology in some pieces and maybe not elsewhere, right? So
and that's honestly been the biggest, when we have conversations with growers, their hesitation doesn't necessarily come from the technology. After we run it in a fallow field or wherever it may be, and they see that it works and that it does what we tell them it's going to do, their hesitation's not with the technology. Their hesitation comes from, completely rethinking or redesigning whether it be their chemistry plan, what, the varieties that they're planting, what their tender trailer looks like for their sprayer. That's where a lot of the hesitation comes from surrounding this technology.
Kind of on the tender side, have we seen with the demos we've done, have you seen a big savings from a efficiency perspective of not having to stop and refill, and because of the amount of savings on chemical? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if you're talking on some of the fallow fields that we've ran where you're saving 60% of field, I mean, a guy could load a sprayer and go, we grower down south loaded his See and Spray Ultimate and just sprayed for almost half a day before he needed to refill. So when you start talking about, when you start looking at Operations Center, what the idle time versus working time is for these sprayers, and you start kind of analyzing what that sprayer is costing you an hour, and that's been the other neat thing that we have seen, talking with different growers, is there's been chemistries in the past that they've used that may have had somewhat of a detrimental impact on their yield at the end of the year, but it was the only thing they could find to control the problem they had. So when you start thinking that way, not only are you saving the chemical, there's a potential that you're going to see somewhat of a yield bump at the end of the year. And you're also, the time savings is huge too. Not even if we take the machine out of the equation, but what's the grower's time worth? What's your time worth? More acres you can get across without being out to refill, and having another guy continue to run you water and chemical. All of those little factors really add up in a hurry.
Quickly.
So.
And one thing we've kind of heard is, how do we plan for that? Mixing batches and stuff like that, because we don't know how much weed pressure is out there. I mean, that's always a hard one, because we don't truly know until we get out there and see. I mean, sensitivity levels make a big difference, buffer. But, what we did here on the farm here is we flew it with a drone. We wanted to have a rough idea of maybe how much we needed to mix up in that batch. I mean, that's a technology we could use. And maybe it's just going over all the fields once. Then we can get some of those weed pressure maps and some of that tech or information, and then we can make some decisions on that, because usually where weed pressure is high once, the seed bank or weed seeds, they're going to be in that soil. I mean, they're probably going to rear their ugly head too.
Well, and I think we've preached it 1,000 times about how this technology gets better over time, and it seems like it's not just the technology that is getting better over time. As we get these machines across more acres, the data, the weed pressure maps and stuff that we can pull from those machines, those are going to drive decisions. Decisions are going to get better over time. Insights are going to get better over time. As we get a couple of years of data and farmers can start to notice trends in fields with weed pressure, that's going to be huge in deciding how much you load when you go spray that field too. That'll help out a bunch.
Yeah, we've talked about proactiveness in some aspects of the operation, and now in applications, just really trying to figure out ahead of time how much product do I need, and what does my weed pressure look like, and then comparing that with one application, and then maybe taking that data to your next field and things like that. You can make some good decisions. So
you also talked about it getting better with time. I mean, we saw some of that with speed enhancements, or maybe going with the row, and now we can go a little bit of an angle there. I think that's one thing I've noticed talking to a lot of these growers too, is like, oh, what if it could do this? And like, we've heard some of the discussion going on about future enhancements, and I think there's some really cool opportunities. They've asked about different crops. I mean, sugar beets are big in our area, small grains with wheat. Like, it's really exciting to think about what we can utilize or what's moving forward looking at those ones. So
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, that's what's on that point. It's pretty mind-boggling when you think about, they talk about future improvements and things that as this gets better over time. And with this stuff, it's not just a software update. I mean, it's crazy to sit here and think that machine is learning as you're running it across the field. So when you think about how much effort and time it takes to get it, basically to teach it a new crop or teach it how to go across the row, it's really impressive.
Yeah, and I always talk about, it's not just that machine learning in this field, right? You could have a grower running a See and Spray machine in Europe. That data is also being put into that algorithm, and so you're helping your local area, but you're also making agriculture effective worldwide, which is really something cool to think about.
Yeah.
We enjoy the comments, by the way, from our listeners, and keep them coming. We definitely take a look at those and trying to respond to some of them as we do other podcasts here. But one of them was around license units, and I got a cheat sheet here that I'm going to use, but you'll see this in a publication from 21st Century, just really taking a look at the license unit costs for 2024. And then also that's changing a little bit for 2025, so I'll go over that. But that we just found out this week, and that's called Application Savings Guarantee. So it really focuses on chemical savings as you go through the field, and that you're paying for really when the product is not spraying. But just some numbers for you. Say we take a 100-acre field of corn as an example. If we didn't use any See and Spray technology on that field, so you're just looking at chemical costs. Say chemical cost is $125 an acre, so that field would cost you $12,500 as an example. Now, 2024, if we utilized a See and Spray machine there, and say we had about 20% weed pressure, so 80% of the field we're not spraying, the license unit cost today is $3 an acre for corn. So that's going to cost you $300 in your license unit costs, but then your chemical would cost you $2,500 for a total cost of $2,800. So about $10,000 worth of savings right there. But then comparative to 2025. So again, I wanted to take this opportunity to explain how that model changes a little in 2025. Again, the model is changing to you'll get charged a license unit when you're not spraying, which is a little backwards from where we're thinking today, but hang on with me and it'll maybe make some sense. But same 100-acre field, same cost of chemical. The license unit cost is going up to $5 an acre for corn for 2025. So say we had that same 20% weed pressure, cost us $2,800 total in 2024. That would cost us $400 in license unit costs in 2025. $2,500 for the chemical, same there. So that's only $100 more for that same 100-acre field in 2025. Now, comparatively, if you had a high weed pressure, so we had 80% weed pressure, we're not, i.e. not spraying 20% of the field, we would still be charged the $5 an acre for the not spraying portion, which is only $100 now because we had a high weed pressure, we're not spraying. And our chemical cost goes up to $8,000 because we're using more chemical. So you're at $8,100, which you're still saving about $4,000 over not using any See and Spray technology at all. So, so just a lot of things to maybe I'll have to rewind and go back and listen to that again. But just kind of think about those savings, like you said, the investment of a See and Spray premium kit on your existing sprayer for $25,000. If I can save $10,000 or even $5,000 on a field, adds up pretty quickly. So, I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to kind of talk about that. But what else have you guys heard on license units, and or what else would you add to that?
I guess one thing I'd add is I think that takes some of the guesswork out of it. I mean, I think a lot of the customers running it right now, we're trying to figure out, well, do I truly run See and Spray or should I put in broadcast? Like they were looking at the license units and seeing how that paid off. So I think we can enable the system and have it run, and then only use the license units for the areas where we didn't spray and we're truly saving money because we didn't apply any product there. I think that's a lot better business model.
Sure. Yeah, and I think too, I mean, even on the real world example in Cheyenne Wells, our customer $40-some an acre trying to target some bindweed and stuff, and I mean that one field we'd only saved 20%, but that was still almost $1,000, so just on a field, if you sat there and looked across that field, that we had such heavy weed pressure, you wouldn't have thought that thing would have quit spraying at all.
Yep.
Ran it across there, we still saved 20%.
Yep.
When we didn't expect to. So, the $1,000 here, a couple $1,000 there, I mean that's going to add up.
Makes a big difference.
It does.
Yep.
And if you could use a better product, that would really control that bindweed because we know how much fun that's been in the past.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, along with the, like you talked about yield advantages, and we'll test that out here, but how much savings does it have on your yield because you're not stressing the crop out by spraying the crop and that kind of thing. So a lot of advantages that maybe aren't included in those numbers, but something to think about it as you move forward.
I think one other thing we should probably talk about is Deere helping us out to make sure these See and Spray, this See and Spray technology goes really well. I mean, they have the customer success team looking at this to make sure the sprayers are running the way they need to. It can look at maybe if there's some issues, why it's going into fallback, some of that stuff. We have another set of eyes looking at that and just making sure the product is performing at its best there.
Yeah, definitely a good call out. We're constantly getting tickets on from our perspective, say, hey, this customer's running See and Spray, but they're not seeing the savings that we thought they would pretty consistently. I mean, they're getting alerts all the time, but they're really utilizing AI to really determine what are those consistent messages coming from the sprayer. And they want that success for the customer just as much as we do. So it's a good partnership with Deere to make sure that the technology is working for the customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us again here on the FarmCast, and thank you, Hayden. Thank you, Casey. Appreciate you joining in and listening to us about a little bit of See and Spray in our application here at the farm. Look forward to maybe getting a demo out on your farm. If you're interested in the product, please contact one of us. Contact your local 21st Century Equipment dealer, and we'll get one out to you. So, thanks for watching, and continue to give us your comments. We'll be happy to discuss those in a future episode.